The Raptors needed to make changes for the upcoming season, but they failed to address some of the major positional needs of the team. So in today's video, we'll discuss what those are and why they could be pivotal to how many wins the team actually gets. Let's get into it. The Raptors entered the 23-24 season with aspirations of making the playoffs. I think at minimum fans wanted the team to be a play-in tournament team, but obviously that is not the way things went down as the Raptors slumped towards 25 games. Yes, they tanked near the end of the season to try and ensure they had better odds of retaining their draft pick, which they did not end up doing so anyways, but it was logical at the time for the team to tank and at least try to get themselves into the top 6 of the NBA draft to keep their draft pick that eventually conveyed to the San Antonio Spurs. But the fact that they were even in that position where they had to tank or even had to consider tanking in the first place highlighted the deficiencies with the team and how things had gone so horribly wrong. Well, we are trying to rectify that this season with the team. No, there may not be those same playoff aspirations. After all, the Raptors are heading into the first year of their rebuild according to head coach Darko Rajakovic, but still, we want to see growth and success as much as possible on the court, especially, for the first half of the season where let's see what this team can do. Let's see how many wins this team can get. We're not going to tank right out the gates of the season. That could come down the line. But despite this, and despite this knowledge from the front office of the Raptors, they needed to make some changes for the upcoming season, but they failed to make 3 pivotal ones based on my assessment of where the roster is currently placed. And that starts off with a big wing defender. Now, if you entered the offseason with this channel, Amateur Hour Sports, for Raptors content, then you heard me say that 2 of the major positional needs of the team are, first of all, addressing the backup point guard need, which, hallelujah, the front office did so when they traded for Davion Mitchell and the pick that acquired Jamal Shead, 2 players who could battle it out for backup point guard minutes. But the second in command to the hierarchy of positional needs, and the first of the 3 that I will present to you in today's video, is again that big wing defender. The Raptors were known even just a year ago for being a long, athletic team. The 6'9" dream implemented by the Raptors front office, where you wanted all of these switchable, athletic defenders, and they started to build a team like that. The problem was, not enough of these guys were skilled enough. Not enough of them could space the floor by shooting the basketball. So that dream has started to fall apart. Whether that's a good or bad thing, I'll leave it up to you. But that thing has started to fall apart. And evidently, this team is certainly lacking in size in the defensive end. Last season, the Raptors were a bit of a disaster on the defensive end of the court, just missing a lot of different areas. But one thing in particular that they really needed and did not address in the offseason was that big wing defender, that player who has the switchability and the ability in general to take on what is typically the best player on the opposing team, that wing sort of player. I'm thinking of the Jason Tatums. I'm thinking of the Jimmy Butler. I'm not sure why those 2 are the first 2 to come to my mind. But when that sort of player is on the other team, who is going to be tasked to defend him? It has very seldom been Scotty Barnes, though I feel like he could do a job in that area. And near the end of last season, a lot of times the task regarding that player was Ochai Agbaji, who is a good defender in my opinion. He struggles on the other end of the floor, which we don't need to go over in today's video. But that type of player, Ochai Agbaji, we need that type of player defensively. Long, athletic, switchable player, astute in on-ball perimeter settings. But we need a better version of that. And now I'm being greedy here because that's a position that's really hard to fulfill and really hard to get. But we just don't have enough help in that area. So Ochai Agbaji, who likely is not going to be a starter, is going to have to be that player that is tasked with that defensive assignment a lot of times. But as far as the starters are concerned, that really might fall on RJ Barrett defensively. And as much as I've loved RJ Barrett as a Raptor, not sure he's ready to take on that role defensively. Scotty Barnes could do it, of course, but I think when you're putting Scotty Barnes in that position, you're losing him as the help defender 4, where he's at his best defensively. Therefore, addressing that position would have been a really worthwhile investment for the Raptors to make in the offseason that they failed to do, and as a result, the defense is going to suffer. The Raptors going to the season, there is a weight of expectations that has developed on the team for the upcoming season. Absolutely. And sometimes it's difficult to really fulfill that weight of those expectations. The same that could be said in that endeavor for the Raptors could be said about really anybody at any time, even people like myself. There's a lot of pressure to continue to deliver videos in a setting like this on YouTube on the channel, and a lot of pressure for myself to produce in my day-to-day endeavors as far as work is concerned, as far as managing my family life is concerned. The same can be said for yourself. Oftentimes, this weight of expectation, this pressure can lead to stressful situations where you feel you can't operate at your best levels. You can get headaches. You can put yourselves in some really dark holes. But with our sponsor, BetterHelp, they can help you out in these situations, just as they've done with myself. If you're feeling overwhelmed by stress like I was, then professional therapy might be the solution that you need. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to give you helpful and unbiased advice. First, you go to their site, you answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who has years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or computer, via phone call, video chat, or messaging, however you feel most comfortable. It's the easiest possible way to get talking to a professional therapist. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you, all from the comfort of your own home. Visit BetterHelp.com/amateursports or choose Amateur Sports on sign up and receive a special discount for your first month. Now, my expectation for the Raptors was that they were going to address this other major positional need, or rather archetype of a player for the upcoming season. First, we talked about the big wing defender, but we've also talked about with the 6'9" dream and the way the Raptors had shaped up over the past few years. We talked about how there was a lack of shooting with the team, and I think that still remains today. A lot of where the Raptors are looking for shooting for the upcoming season is through internal development. There's not necessarily a lot of actual shooters within the ranks of this team. Obviously, Emmanuel quickly can shoot and was a very good three-point shooter for the Raptors last season. RJ Barrett took a huge step forward from a three-point standpoint once getting traded to the Raptors. Scotty Barnes started the season electrifyingly well from three, tapered off near the end of the season, but still managed a 34% three-point percentage over the course of the whole season. Yes, there are players who can shoot within this team, but as far as actual real shooters, I think you have to look at Grady Dick, and hopefully we see a jump in his three-point percentage this season. But other than that, there's going to be some struggles. David Mitchell took a jump from three last season, but we'll see if that's sustainable. Jamal Shed is a non-three-point shooter. Jacoby Walter entering his first season. We still need to shore up that efficiency before he's really entrusted in such a role and before he's really defended like that from opposition teams. Bruce Brown can shoot when open. Ochai Agbaji, what he displayed for the Raptors last season, can't shoot, but hopefully that solves itself this season. Kelly Olynyk can be a little inconsistent, especially as he's aging, and the other players of the team not really considered shooters, at least the ones that are going to be in the rotation. Overall, there's not a ton of real shooting threat on this team. And I think a lot of the times when it comes to shooting and the way people consider shooting, people look at three-point percentages. You go to Basketball Reference and look, oh, he shot this from three, shot so-and-so from three. But what shooting really comes down to is how much the other team cares about you as a three-point shooter. So if you're going to be open for three and they're going to let you take that shot, sure, you might make 34%, but there are some other players who could shoot 34% and bring in a ton of shooting gravity, meaning the defense cares about you, meaning the defense are focused on you around the three-point line. When they're doing that, it draws a player out of the paint, it draws a player onto the perimeter, and provides more space on the inside. This is the type of player that the Raptors are certainly lacking in a little bit with their current roster. And though this maybe wouldn't have been one of the big things to address in the offseason, it's always nice to bring in some additional shooting. The same can be said for the other 29 teams in the NBA, I'm sure, but with roster space that they had, with the cap space situation kind of eventually sorting itself out with the Sacha Vezenkov situation, it feels like a bit of a missed opportunity that this team did not take on when trying to bring in players for the offseason to bring in some additional shooting. In the past, granted, the Raptors have tried to solve this additional shooting by bringing in minimum salary players like Yuta Watanabe or Juancho Hernangomez, which those situations didn't really work out, but putting a bit more of a priority into bringing shooting to this team would have been nice to see to provide additional spacing to players like Quickly, Barnes, and Barrett, who we really want to see grow and ascend this season. Now, at least in the draft with a player like Jacoby Walter, there was a little bit of an eye on shooting, and hopefully Jacoby Walter does progress there, but it may not happen from day one. It just feels like for this season, that would have been really nice to bring in, and the Raptors did not address it. Which brings us to the final positional sort of archetype that the Raptors did not bring in and did not address in the offseason. This is a big one that I've talked about a lot on the channel. This was really right up there with backup point guard. This was really right up there with big wing defender. It's bringing in extra rim protection. And I'm not just talking about, again, we can't just tape over these problems with a player on a cheap contract. Respectfully to Bruno Fernando, this is the reason that he was brought in. At the very least, look, there was an eye on this positional need, this type of player. Somebody who could play backup minutes and protect the rim. Bruno Fernando is a decent rim protector and also has a bit of a perimeter presence defensively as well. Now, obviously, the bread and butter's in the paint. can go a little bit on the outside when necessary, and that's what Darko Rajakovic was raving about when the Raptors did sign this player as a free agent. But Bruno Fernando's contract showcases the confidence that they have in the player. The deal is guaranteed through training camp, and then it's guaranteed for the full season if he makes the Raptors roster for opening night. If he doesn't make the Raptors roster opening night, he's waived, he's cut, and there's no additional guarantees, as I said. So that shows you the degree of confidence. If they were seriously confident in a player, that's the type of player that gets a guaranteed contract for the whole season. So it feels like they're kind of taping over the issue here. Now, again, Bruno Fernandes is a decent player who I believe can give the Raptors maybe 10 to 12 minutes per game, but it feels as though this wasn't enough of a priority for the team going into the year as it should have been. Like, this sort of player just makes the lives of everybody else in the team easier so that when Jakob Poeltl is on the floor, who is a very good rim protector, there isn't this black hole defensively. Like, we want to improve Jacoby Walter as a 3-and-D player. It's a lot easier for him to work on his defensive game when he doesn't have to overcompensate for the lack of a defensive presence behind him at the rim, especially in those bench units. The same can be said for a lot of the other players on the team. Now, if Christian Koloko does return to the NBA, and if he does return to the NBA, he does return to the Raptors, I feel like that's the perfect sort of player to solve this. And perhaps the Raptors are looking at solving this through Ulrich Shamshe, who they drafted 57th overall in the most recent NBA draft down the line. But it's just not something that's going to be there this season. And as I said, this could be something that's pivotal towards the early stage of development defensively for a lot of the young players on this team. And it just wasn't addressed enough or well enough. And therefore, I feel like, again, this was a missed opportunity by the Toronto Raptors. So there you have it. Those are the three big misses: the big wing defender, the additional shooting, and the rim protecting presence off the bench. Those three things are not on this team, and they will suffer as a result. Now, you can't solve everything. At least they did solve the backup point guard situation. But part of the reason why I feel like this could be a tough season for Raptors fans is because positional needs like this just were not addressed either at all or enough. That being said, it's a young and exciting team with the capabilities of winning some games and maybe exceeding some expectations. So let's see where they can go. And perhaps midway through the season, with assets like Bruce Brown, one or two of these positional needs can be met at some other point. So what do you make of the three that I went over in today's video? Do you have any others? Do you feel like they aren't as big of a deal as I'm making it out to be? Whatever it is, give me your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. That's all for me for today. Drop a like if you did enjoy this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more Raptors content. And I will see you again next time for another video.